Hey guys, so today I started to kind of inspect why I was having a gear oil leak on the inside of the spindle up here. I assumed there was a seal that was bad, so I go to take it all apart and the seal was bad, but what a mess this job has been. So start out, you got to take the wheel off and the drum, and of course you got to fight that with rust and everything. And aren't a lot of special tools involved here, but man, it's just a fair amount of work. First, you got to pull. I watched the MTVR channel's video on replacing the axle boot, which was a huge help because you need just some weird tools that you don't normally use. You need a 16 millimeter wrench just to pull the shock off. It's not a real common size, but you need a 16 millimeter wrench that's got a 12 point on it, and you can't get a socket in there. So first pull the shock off and then find out that your shock's complete. I can't do this one-handed, but the shock's completely blown apart. I can just pull it apart and push it back together. So pull the shock off, not a huge deal. And then you got to pull the axle shaft out, which Eli was right. I don't know if you can see the red paint mark. I got some red paint right there. Mark the axle shaft as you pull it apart so you can put it all back together. That's not so bad. So some bolts here. You need a 19 millimeter and an 18 millimeter. There's my red paint right there so I can line it back up. And this thing's pretty light, surprisingly, but so pull that off. I had to cut the band that holds the boot on. I'm gonna have to, I don't know, find a band or just use a huge hose clamp. So see how that goes. Then you've got to pull, so once the wheel's off and the drum is off, you got to pull the whole planetary hat off, which again isn't a huge job. You can see in here where the gear oil level was. Everything else is all rusty. So I'm going to go in there and clean all that up. But that in itself isn't a huge job, except, well, before I tell you how to pull it off, when I did pull it off, I noticed these are, I think they call these kind of like a tie bar that holds the planetary gears in. This one's bent so much that the planetary can just spin. And you can see right there, that tie bar should be pressed down like this is to keep that tab from spinning. And you can see some clean metal in there. Something hit it, but I don't know what would cause it to pull up and out. So that's a little concerning, but not the end of the world. Hopefully I can just tap that back down and it'll be fine. When you pull the hat off, let me try to reposition here. Sorry, I'm trying to do this one-handed with a tripod. So the hat, I'm trying to do this without getting completely greasy so I can hold the camera again. The hat is held on by these these tapered Allen bolts that go into here that has the same bevel to it. You pull those out and then you put them into this position and they push up against the hub, and it lifts the whole hat off. But of course these are Loctited in, and you got to use a torch. Your dad's old map gas torch isn't going to work. I had to use oxygen acetylene just to break the Loctite free. Then they zip right out. And then you put them back in that position and slowly tighten them down, and it pulls the hat off. There's a huge O-ring around here, around the circumference. So when that comes off, of course, a bunch of gear oil comes out. So you got to get ready for that. And then you're left with this big gear and a thrust washer. This came off pretty easy. You just loosen that. You can see where the thrust washer rides, and that rides in. I'm not turning that over again, but it rides on the inside of the hat. So pretty simple there. This bolt here and gear bolt to the end of here, and there's splines on the inside of that gear that match these splines. Those gears are what ride on the planetary gears, which all spin against the big sun gear teeth here. That's how it all works. And that's just a bronze bushing that doesn't turn. So that part's not so bad. Then you don't have a whole lot of room back here. But then you pull the whole, there's not going to be enough light back here, but you pull the whole CV basically out and drop it down through your A-arm. Now the hard part is getting the seal out. You can see here I completely mangled it. It's not a two-piece. This fits inside of here, but this came apart. This has like a lot of seals do, the spring that kind of keeps tension on it. That was in pieces inside, so this presses in to the spindle this way. But God, getting it out is just a bear because there's not a lot of room to get in there with tools. The only thing that worked for me was I got a long snap-on save today here, pry bar with a bend at the end, and I stuck the whole thing through the center. And as it comes, you can barely see here because there's not a lot of light, but you basically get it with that. With the bent part down, and you got to beat the seal out, and there's no reusing this thing. And luckily there was a part number on it, which is, it's an Oshkosh part. There it is. And I don't know if that'll come out. You'll have to trust me here. Oh, here we go, 3292762. I googled that part number and they're on eBay. You get a 2-pack for $17, so that's cheap. And putting it in is going to be easy, right? Because it's got the flange on it. So you just pound it in and then reassemble the whole thing. And like I said, there aren't a lot of special tools. You need some oddball stuff. Just to get the shock off, you need 1 1/8", which, that starts getting into some big parts. But, so that seal will be here in about a week, and I'll be able to reassemble it. And hopefully that goes smooth. Hopefully that fixes the leak problem, because if you lose a half a quart of gear oil, it looks like 4 quarts, and it's a pain to clean gear oil up. So anyway, I don't know if anyone else is working on this kind of stuff, but it'd be interesting to find out why that tie bar bent like that. It didn't look like there's really any other damage in here. The seal surface looks okay. The balls, I'm going to clean all that up. But those don't look terrible, so not a lot of damage, not a ton of rust for how much water was in there when I first drained it out of these bolts, or the plugs here. Just pure water came out. There's black water, and what was interesting is there was water in there. I filled it up, drove it home. There was no leak from the base I picked up the truck from. But then, of course, once I fill it with fresh gear oil and drive it around my house, it started to leak. So. Anyway, you want to see the scariest thing of all? I've got, these are 2-ton jack stands. So I've got 3 of those plus the 20-ton bottle jack I used to jack up the truck. And I jacked it up from the frame. Most people would just jack it up from the A-arm because you don't have to raise it as high. But I wanted the A-arm to be as far away from the U-joint as I could. That way it was all easier to pull apart. So plus you almost have to, you have to get the wheels up off the ground, because you have to steer this thing up. You have to steer the spindle this way to be able to beat half the seal out, and then steer it this way to be able to beat the rest of the seal out. So anyway, hopefully that seal comes in and it looks good and I can reinstall it. And now I just got to find I don't know, that's probably a 6-inch hose clamp, and hopefully that'll fit. So anyway, another look on the inside here. You can see all the way through. So this is definitely pretty involved, and not knowing what's in here. Usually if I was going to tackle a job like this, I would watch a YouTube video or a how-to, but in this case there are none. There you go. You can see where that hat bolts in here, and that's what pulls the hat up against the hub here. And then, yeah, you can see them. That's where those bolts, as you tighten them, push the hat off, because you've got to break. It's pretty dirty, but you've got to break this O-ring seal right in there. So again, I'll clean that all up, and hopefully we're all set after that. Anyway, I hope that helps someone. If you know anything about this, and and can help with any comments, let me know. Thanks.